Hey, everybody, I'm David Bloom, and this flagship edition of Next TMT Talks. It's nervous time for Larry Ellison and Oracle as the AI bubble edges ever closer to an explosive pop. Who said you needed a 401k to have a decent retirement? Gianni Infantino tries to sell off a piece of the World Cup and finds he's not covered in Teflon after all. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. proves once again the difference between père et fils as he oversees the worst measles outbreak in 35 years. And Ari Emanuel and Gavin Newsom suggest the Warner-Paramount deal should go through to save Hollywood jobs. So, Daniel, what's up with Larry and the gang at Oracle?
Well, we do a deep dive into the numbers, Dave, and they're not pleasing.
Well, this has been a thing. This has been a conversation a little bit that we've had, but certainly Wall Street's had for a while now, right? Because he took out a whole lot of debt to finance upfront a huge investment in AI capacity, AI compute capacity, right? Isn't that the big issue here?
Well, I mean you, as you rightly stated, playing the speculative game, trying to evaluate OpenAI, Anthropic, it's a tough gambit. It's based on their hyperbole, Wall Street skepticism, somewhere in the middle. Where is that? Who knows? But you look at the companies that are supposed to supply them with the steel to build these things. Amazon, Alphabet, they're kind of well capitalized to do it. They spin off enormous amounts of cash and can handle the capex of building data centers. Maybe I'm being a little bit...
It's worth noting, though, hey, Daniel, it's worth noting that even they now are taking out debt. They were paying for this just as part of the cost of doing business. You know, we're paying for it with our leftover cash. And now they're taking out debt to pay for the next 9 zillion figure, capex investment. So
yeah, I mean, it looks to me, maybe it's a little presumptive to say that Trump talked Ellison into this. We got your back, Larry. Come on.
I think Netanyahu talked Ellison into it. It's Netanyahu's fault, right? That's what it is. He talked him into it.
Well, I mean, Trump had his fingerprints all over a big $300 billion deal with OpenAI signed last September. It was part of the Stargate program, where Oracle was going to pivot from enterprise software in cloud into data center provision for the hyperscaler, is what they call it. It was going to compete with Google, Amazon, Meta, etc. in this game of supplying compute. And it turns out it's a pretty volatile business. I mean, the real estate's one thing. Nobody wants it near their house. Land leases are expensive. Oracle's already stuck out there to the tune of nearly $250 billion on future leases. And then you've got the issue of, can OpenAI pay its end of it? Can they keep up with payments that needed to build it out? Do you have enough cash flow? You're not as big as those other guys. You spin off a lot less, so you need to borrow it. Stock starts to drop. The more the stock drops, the higher your borrowing costs go. You put that against RAM prices spiraling right now. Everything else, it's a bad stew. I'm not saying that, Larry Ellison's been around a long time. He's been a big figure in American business for 30, 40 years. He's 81 years old. And he's probably survived a few things, but this looks perilous to me. What do you think?
Well, the reason why we care about these things above and beyond the AI bubble and what that all does for the stock market is Oracle and Larry's personal fortune are backstopping the Paramount Warner Brothers deal.
That's one big reason.
$40 billion worth of that $111 billion is backstopped by Ellison and a written pledge included in the documents. And this is, I think, probably far-fetched, but not impossible that may impact that deal also. So
yeah,
it has a certain additional piquancy.
I don't know his exact worth now, but it's been stated by Larry Ellison's camp that he's got enough wealth that unspoken for assets can be collateralized. He's not short of collateral.
Right.
But if the market...
he's got a big chunk of Carbon Beach. Partnership with Nobu on the Malibu and the Malibu Ryokant there in Carbon Beach,
Right.
one of the most exclusive stretches of real estate in Southern California. He owns 97%, I believe, of Lanai, an entire Hawaiian island. Those are a couple of showpiece assets. He owns a bunch of stuff, I think, in Miami.
He owns an
Part that's
island now
down
in
underwater.
Florida, looks like a big chunk of it, an island town.
Right.
Metaplanet
Right.
and
So he's got stuff. So, you know,
$40 billion.
but it does become a question at a certain point. It does become a point. There comes a point when you're leveraged so high that it becomes a little bit problematic, and we need only look at the collapse this past week of situational awareness, or at least part of situational awareness, a remarkable hedge fund founded by a 24-year-old Wunderkind, who was the 19-year-old valedictorian at Columbia.
Right.
When he graduated, and now at 24 was marrying this past weekend the chief of staff for Dario Amodei of Anthropic, even as margin calls forced him to sell off at a bargain $45 billion worth of publicly owned or positions in publicly traded stocks to Ken Griffin, the wily old guy who has that $130 million apartment, pied a terre, in New York City that Mayor Mamdani has made so much political
So how much
hay
is the
about.
kid left
So
with? What's the damage?
it's not clear, but among the things he owns is several $1 billion and it's hard to say because, as we were saying, valuations are tough, of Anthropic. He's got like $5 to $10 billion worth of that, and some other privately held positions in companies. So it's not clear, but most of the publicly traded stocks had to be liquidated to deal with margin calls. So when you get out over your skis and somebody has reason to believe you can't pay your stuff back, margin calls ensue, and all of a sudden you have a lot of highly leveraged stuff go away. So that is an example. And no one is saying that Larry is like young, Aschenbrenner, I think is his name. I don't think anybody's saying that, but it's a threat.
Yeah, I mean, I think the comparisons to fiber build out 25 years ago, whatever that was, when they were a lot of people went bankrupt, and ultimately the infrastructure was needed and utilized, but the infrastructure got too far ahead of the capital structure in that case, and people suffered. I don't think anybody's disputing that AI compute will be needed and utilized. I'm a believer. I know you are, but I just I do think there are kind of important entities and people are exposed right now, and Ellison's among them. And
right, and there are definitely pockets here that are interesting, right? I mean, so it'll impact things unevenly. The question is, some people are just more vulnerable. But like Caterpillar stock went through the roof because they were buying Caterpillar bulldozers to build data centers, and it went up some insane number like 700% in the last year. Well, I don't think it'll stay there if some of this stuff comes pulling back.
Right.
For
If you
instance,
have
I mean, that's like
you have a company that's market capped at 400 billion or just under that, I think that's what Oracle's number is. At what point, what does that do if that is suddenly liquidated for some reason? And it can happen.
right. Well, yeah. I mean, you need to go back to 1929 to really see that, or a little bit in 2007, which was, I think, much more pertinent. Yeah. So, Dan, I just looked up, and indeed, Oracle's market capitalization is $374 billion as of the weekend. So that's a pretty good sized company. They're not probably going anywhere anytime soon. And Larry does have something like $135 billion or something like that personal fortune. A lot of that is the Oracle stock. So I guess we probably shouldn't worry about his ability to backstop the Warner deal. But it does feel it feels a little domino like, I mean, that's the thing that's concerning.
You've got a company that lost 64% of its wealth in 11 months. Happens, but its debt is down 130 billion. It's got to borrow a lot more, and it keeps getting downgraded. S&P Global kicked it near junk status last month. Borrowing,
we talked about that. Yeah, I mean, and they're in that sort of high class junk, but I mean, it's it's a high yield is what is the nice term, right? But you're paying much higher levels of interest for your debt. And he's got a lot of debt. So it gets more expensive to pay off because it's a higher risk. It's judged to be higher risk. So
right.
that's
Wall
a
Street
lot.
looks at that, kicks the stock down more because they've got to borrow it. They've got to build these things. The businesses all depend
Down
on it.
48.6% in 1 year. That's a lot.
And then, from the peak last September, I think the number's in the 60s, but I may be wrong. So I guess I'm identifying this virtuous cycle. Everything is collateralized based on the stock price. And the more the stock price falls, the worse all those other metrics get. And the worse all those metrics get, the more the stock falls. So
Right.
it just doesn't look good to me. And I don't know what's going on with OpenAI. First, they were going to go IPO. It was supposed to happen by now. Now they're not. It's delayed. Yeah.
Now it's next year or sometime, something, blah, 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 blah. They kind of needed to do that, though, because they stepped in it enough times that probably pushing it back was smart. The question is, does OpenAI lose out, particularly if Anthropic is able to move forward with its IPO? Both of these things are, talk about the way things are stacked up, and this thing connects to this and connects to this.
Right.
The employee compensation is tied to ultimately a belief that these companies are going to go public and have the kind of paydays that the SpaceX guys got, right? For however long that was good until it was less good. But on the front end, it looked good. So,
yeah, I guess it's just in a matter of 45 days, the whole market turned. It became very bearish overnight, it feels like. If you factor in what happened to SpaceX, all these sort of anecdotal stories, the delays on Anthropic and OpenAI, your good friend, the Anthropic guy, it just feels like not a market crash, but it is an iceberg may have been that vibration sound when the iceberg hits the hull. That's what's happening. I'm not a big
sailor. Not a sailor. She looks very cute in those little sailor outfit, the little bib in the back.
I love the land. I love the land. So not me. But
your spouse is built differently, I think. But yes, our beloved producer. But yes.
So what happens if this merger doesn't come through? Hollywood dies first before Wall Street, or what was the
it's interesting. So Ari Emanuel writes this lengthy thing saying the Warner Brothers deal could save Hollywood, op-ed piece. And he says if the deal doesn't go through, you've got a limping Warner with $29 billion in debt and declining revenues. What he doesn't get into is, okay, the two companies merge and you got $80 billion in debt, and it's predicated on the same cable operators continuing to generate, throw off lots of cash, even as they're getting skinny down, and they're going to continue to extract money to pay off the debt as fast as possible while they're laying off thousands of people that they don't want to talk about because that looks bad. But it's like, dude, it's like going to save, it's going to save jobs. It's like, which part saves jobs? What about all the accountants and lawyers and, key grips that get set out the door because there's three of them. They only need two for a single entity. You go down the list, it's like he doesn't deal with any of that. It may be that his interest in this is influenced by the fact that he signed a $7.7 billion contract, his TKO Holdings Group, which he is chairman of, is what's left after all the machinations and sell-offs and horse trading that went on with WME and Endeavor Group, et cetera, et cetera. He owns TKO Holdings, whose holdings include UFC, which just signed that $7.7 billion, highly lucrative, very interesting deal with Paramount Plus. So it's possible that may skew some of his perspective. I don't want to cast aspersions, but $7.7 billion transforming the pay-per-view business and really the entire economic structure of UFC, one of their major holdings.
the support of a traditionally influential Hollywood player in Ari Emanuel.
Right.
What do you make of Gavin Newsom telling Bonta, hey, settle this thing. Don't let it go to trial?
Well, here's the deal. What we have is a Wall Street Journal report, also Wall Street Journal. So file that away.
Right.
Wall Street Journal story that's a little light on details or confirmation or responses from the Newsom operation saying he told Bonta to, it wasn't good for jobs in California. And I'm okay. Well, can we flesh this out? Is the belief that, yes, a whole bunch of people will get laid off, but then the remaining merged company, will be stronger and able to put out 30 films a year. Ha, ha, ha. I'll believe that one if it happens for longer than 6.7 months. If they're going to put out 30 films a year until the end of time and employ everybody got laid off, and now they're just going to be independent contractors. I mean, is that the belief, and based on what, other than what Larry Ellison said? Or David Ellison, not Larry. So hard to keep my Ellison straight.
David Ellison also told the Journal that, and then take this for what it's worth, but CNN, I guess, is not on the table. That was also part of the...
Right. And I think that he would not spin it off. And that's what you say before you spin it off. Basically, it's like, we're never doing that. It's never, ever going to happen. But yes, here, let's do it, until you have to.
So you saw that
he has no reason to be that attached to CNN, to be frank about it, because the bigger prize for him, now he may get a lot of grief from a Trump administration that has already waved through the deal. So if he spins off CNN, what's going to happen, right?
Well, I think that was part of the problem for operators like Nexstar, Paramount, is that, say it's political all you want, but neither of these deals got their tires kicked in the regulatory process. So
right. It's sort of like, it's the basketball team that breezes through the regular season because they're in the weak conference. And then they get to the finals, they get their ass kicked by a team that actually made it through a pretty tough gauntlet, right? Because they never had to deal with that. It's a little bit like that, to use a sports metaphor.
Yeah, we're using a lot of those. That's us.
That's us.
So
wouldn't be Next TMT Talks without a little sports metaphor. So, speaking of which,
I just want to mention one thing related to CNN.
Mention it.
And that Dana Bash interview where she's interviewing Robert Kennedy Jr. And
talk about bashing. Yeah,
we're the greatest performance in the history of the world, and we had the lowest numbers, and she just checks him on all of it. And you got to appreciate a strident press, but some don't. It's a dying breed. But it's an awkward interview too. I encourage everyone to see it. She doesn't let anything go by. I really appreciated it.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who probably owes his straight teeth to my grandfather and orthodontist to the entire Robert Kennedy clan.
Really?
And the John Kennedy children and the Richard Nixon children. I have seen the plaster cast of Julie Nixon Eisenhower's mouth with my own eyes when I was 12. Like that.
Did he do young Robert?
I don't know that he necessarily did. There were 8 children there, but he did the Bobby Kennedy kids. So I know that. So
straighten him out as it might be.
That, at least that part, that he did not remove any parasites, unfortunately.
Brace them for a high profile future.
Yes, exactly. But that being said, this is the same week we had Dr. Fauci getting brought before a Senate committee to grill him endlessly over long ago questions of, well, was it released into the wild from a Wuhan wet lab that you helped encourage to get better? Or was it something that mutated from the wild by itself in the hothouse situations of the wet markets of Wuhan? And I'm fascinated by other people's fascination with this because knowing where it came from doesn't keep it from being what it was. Even as they denied it was something, or the vaccinations were terrible, or whatever, and they make up a lot of stuff. But that being said, Fauci just spent 3 hours reading the line saying, I exercise my Fifth Amendment rights and can't respond. Sorry. And he literally said that, I think, to every single inquiry, including possibly them asking him what his name was. But that's really the only way to deal with that, while the senators do their Senate things and don't get done things that need to get done.
It works both. It's really bipartisan. Those clips of senators laying into people, lack so much context. If sometimes the context, if you know it, it looks like it's really warranted. I thought Pam Bondi totally deserved it, and I'm biased, obviously, but in this case, Anthony Fauci was taking the fifth because there's just nothing to be gained. He's already pardoned. Anything that he does now could be considered a crime, and the folks that he's testifying in front want him to commit a crime. So why would you give them the opportunity to do it?
Right.
That context doesn't come through to anybody. You have young adults on X this weekend. Well, now that we know without a shadow of a doubt that the vaccine was bogus, it's media is such a dangerous thing. You have people who are, one of the exchanges between Dana Bash and Robert Kennedy Jr. says, well, he says, well, you're not a doctor. And she goes, well, you're not either. Or medically trained.
Right.
Nobody's medically trained.
Medically trained. Yeah. Yeah.
The one guy who is has to take the fifth. So it's an interesting.
Well, and if you think about it, what they literally said is they were trying to catch him in something, whether they could then go after him for lying to Congress. So his exercise of his Fifth Amendment rights is to ensure that he doesn't say anything that could be a fig leaf excuse that would incriminate him for a bogus but heartfelt criminal prosecution. So I understand the reasoning behind it, and I think it was prudent of his lawyers. But that was 3 hours of theater along with the Dana Bash interview. I mean, on the one hand, you want to be able to have access to these guys. On the other hand, their inability to agree on a basic set of realities and facts is difficult because you don't want to platform them too much. It's a little bit like Jeff Zucker back in, Trump won, just turning on the tow button and running Trump rallies uninterrupted for hours at a time. Now, of course, that would be seen under Brendan Carr as partisan politics stuff that violates equal time provisions. And it would, really. So but that being said, it's a really interesting time. I'm
going to make
it turns out
a sort of proverbial regular tribute to YouTube's dominance of the video space and mention, did you see Harvey Levin's soliloquy the other night following the Fauci testimony?
I did not.
It was powerful. It was a really eloquent, 15-minute soliloquy. Again, I thought it was a verbal essay, as it might be. But he had a lot of friends who he lost during the AIDS crisis. He credits Fauci with being brave enough to try a bunch of bizarre clinical trials and really innovate and get that thing at least curable or controllable.
Fauci was a real hero during the AIDS fight. Yeah,
what I thought was really kind of, he offered balance. Levin starts the thing by saying, hey, listen, do I think it was always efficient? Do I think they overstepped? Did they make mistakes? They did. I got very frustrated with some of the restrictive, unnecessary seeming rules and the sort of monolithic, dogmatic approach that these rules seem to be levied with at times. We all did. But to throw the whole thing out anyway, I encourage everybody to see it. It is, anybody can, with a message, can kind of get out there. So.
Yes, anybody with a message can get out there. That is both the
except for us, we're stuck
here.
The
benefit and the bane of our time. It turns out, one of the things I was writing about this week, there's a bit of a recession among influencers. It is no longer good enough for, as one put it, I think, Pilates, aloe, and cappuccino or something like that in your Insta feed to keep millions of people watching you. It's not just a lifestyle, slim young thing moving around through the world, life great. Now you kind of have to do some different stuff to stick out because people are over that whole gee, I wish I had a lifestyle like that. They're
Right.
definitely not feeling like they're going to be spending $100 on a pair of leggings, for instance, at this point, or even $23 on an Erewhon smoothie.
Right. For a while, you had to
And
jump a Tesla. Remember that? You had to total it in order to be seen. Remember that guy?
yeah, that guy. But I mean, that's just a throwback to Kobe fake jumping over a car. So,
Yeah,
that is an
that,
homage.
I
It's an
harkened back
homage, but
to that old Warner Brothers cartoon with Bugs and Daffy Duck. They're showmen, and finally, Daffy keeps getting upstaged, and finally he swallows all these explosives. One shot of uranium-238 nitroglycerin, and he blows up, and the crowd loves it. And Bugs, is telling him, "Hey, just wonderful act, Daffy, you did it." And Daffy goes, "Well, I can only do it once." That's
yeah,
kind of
right.
like
As
you're
his
like,
ghost is floating up into the sky. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Well, what's interesting about this, though, to me, not just the shifting tastes of millions of consumers of what have been sort of lighter than air influencer content for some time now, but what that means or could mean for the Hollywood studios that are increasingly looking toward the influencers and vertical content in general as a way to be able to drive more views onto their traditional platforms. And it suggests that it's complicated, and this is going to be a place where there's going to be some deals done that may not work out quite as well, to my mind, for the traditional media companies as they might hope. I did notice, though, one of the writers for one of the late night guys is busy doing a vertical micro, not drama, but micro show for fun. And he's just writing it as he's going on the side while he's doing his stuff for, I want to say it's Seth Meyers. I'm not sure it's Seth, but it's one of those guys. And I find that interesting because all of a sudden there is a place for that stuff to happen, right? All of a sudden there might be an opportunity to create original content that ties people into your name brand franchises and keeps people around on Peacock, all 48 million of them, or Netflix or whatever. And it does require, though, some different thinking by the creators themselves. It's a little bit like, when the DVD business blew up, and you were dealing with that stuff for years, but there was a whole subgenre of DVD added
exclusive
content,
DVD trivia.
exclusive content,
Yeah.
these wonderful little documentaries behind the scenes and profiles of performers and the making of
Hmm.
stuff and all that. It was really kind of cool stuff. But there were a few guys who were sort of famous. Like this one guy with a French name that escapes me was Spielberg's designated guy for all the Spielberg stuff. Well, you could see this new, like folks who are working in traditional Hollywood, maybe have a little spare time, more than they want, because they just got laid off at Warner Brothers, starting to write for this stuff, being able to create it. Like they're doing this thing that I read. I mean, he's doing this stuff. Uh, they're just using sets that are laying around, people are laying around because there's no money for it.
Did
But
you
then
ever
he's
check
doing
out
it and he's what to do.
Good Night with Bing Glebe? We wrote about it a few weeks ago.
Oh
They're
yeah, yeah, it was fun. Yeah, but I
they're
mean, those are
getting
comedian guys doing good stuff. Yeah.
nearly 500,000 views at this point. It's growing, and what I like about it is they have a virtual audience, and they're self in a very funny way.
They're like us. We
Self-deprecating.
virtually have an audience.
Yeah, I mean they make fun of their own numbers. If I can
Yeah.
identify individual people,
We can do that.
it must mean we're huge. So
Maybe
they
we can
handle
like cross post and make fun of each other's numbers. That would be big.
No, this show is funny. It can be a little more bawdy and late night than late night can be. And
I'll work on that.
I
Oh,
feel
you
like
mean their show? Their
yeah.
show. That's what you're talking about.
He shoots it at his house, but it still looks good. I'm bullish on this. I really hope this guy succeeds because for one, he's talented. Like I said, I feel like he would have got something on cable or broadcast eventually. He's that good. And I feel like it's entertaining. I mean, I a lot of the stuff I write about, I don't actually watch. This one comes out, I don't know if it's like once every week and a half, I feel like. But
okay, so first of all, Daniel, it's cool that you watch it. Second of all, just going to say, maybe we don't talk about, oh, we didn't really watch that. We just wrote about it. Just throwing that out there. Just me. Like,
I mean,
you
I'll
watched
check
every
it.
single
I'm not,
millisecond.
that you're not hearing me. Some stuff that we evaluate on a distribution plane, I'll check it out. But I'm like, that's a nice widget, you know. Rarely do I get a relationship as a consumer, is what I'm saying, Dave. But anyway, that's
All
neither
right,
here nor
just
there.
fine. That's fine. Speaking of relationships, Gianni Infantino, the FIFA strongman, thought he was cruising to re-election by acclamation for his fourth term. And then word got out of his secret proposed deal with Josh Kushner, who is, Jared Kushner, who is, Ivanka Trump's husband, therefore the son-in-law of the president. So Josh is the brother-in-law of as I put it, the only woman Donald Trump has ever loved, his own daughter. No, that's not weird and creepy. It's just Don. But that being said, so Josh has a company. Gianni has an idea. We're going to spin off 20% of FIFA, the World Cup entity, which is run by FIFA, which is a nonprofit based in Switzerland. And its members, 211, I think, federations in countries around the world. And Infantino has played people off, paid them off effectively with, here's 10 million for your organizations. He has his deal. And is going to sell it for 4.2 billion to a company that he's part of that will then run it.
That's FIFA right now.
And in turn, bring in private equity money, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I heard the press conference. He said it's going to underwrite the sport and get millions of boys and girls that aren't even born yet playing soccer. So how can it not be good?
Right. And this is how he works. He proposed to pay the federation that voted for the deal, his project, 20 million, and far less than that for the ones that did not.
Right.
So basically it's a payoff for the vote. Well, this is very Gianni. He's the guy that gave Donald Trump that bogus Peace Prize. He's also the guy that Trump hit up multiple times when Fowler and Balogun.
Yeah, he's in the business.
Got in trouble with a red card. He's a little slick. So out of all of that, he has his deal, values the World Cup at 20 billion. They made 15 billion, it's estimated, this time around. He's valuing the entire World Cup at 20 billion, which seems a little low. And I guarantee you, if they sell those rights for TV,
they already have first off, they've got the accounting done already, and 15 billion.
Well, that's the estimate. That's the estimate. 15.
That's impressive, man.
And they get the host countries to pay for a lot of it. They distribute money to all the federations. All get a little something, a little crack in the schoolyard kind of thing.
Football is life.
But this deal was not well received. UEFA, which represents 55 European federations, including some of the most prominent, including Spain, which just won, France, which has won a couple of times in the last 20 years, the England, which was the semifinalist, I'm sorry. All those guys and a whole bunch of others, they just said, look, if you do this, we will not participate in any, at whatever level, male or female, any FIFA project, period. CONCACAF, which is the bigger of the two Western Hemisphere federation groups, also said this ain't working for us either. So that's a significant portion of all the big money members.
Yeah, you had the champion. That was the first group you mentioned.
Yeah.
Can you imagine without Spain, England, France playing?
No Spain, no England, no France, no Italy, no Belgium, no Germany. That's a serious World Cup, minus an entire continent, maybe 2 or 3, particularly because the next World Cup is going to be in Spain and Portugal and Morocco, along with 3 matches down in South America in honor of Uruguay's, the 100th anniversary of the first World Cup, which was Uruguay. So that being said, the deal's on hold, and all of a sudden Gianni isn't looking so sweet for next spring when they have re-election.
When is the election supposed to happen?
In the spring. Now, he is slippery enough that this may not be
Right.
dead.
There's enough time.
The other thing that's interesting about this, it's not necessarily terrible to have private equity involved, but it feels really yucky for something like this. But it's worth noting college football, college sports, which is seeing costs balloon in the wake of the House versus NCAA lawsuit and their ever competitive nature of, oh, we can spend 20 million on payroll for our student athletes. Let's spend 30 million and get better athletes. Kind of thing. It's now running out of control. So a lot of schools are feeling the strain, particularly ones that aren't running a huge revenue machine like University of Texas, say, or Michigan.
Yeah.
And University of Utah has already taken a private equity deal for the operation of their athletics department.
Well,
So,
how can you compete without creative finance? If you're Utah.
Right. Well, see, that's what gets interesting. It feels like there's plenty of money coming in for World Cup. And the Women's World Cup next year is going to be maybe not quite what the men's did, but it's going to be pretty good, right? It has been the viewership on that is through the roof because, for instance, the women's national team is way more successful. They've won three World Cups. They're way more, actually, they're way more interesting too, or have been. I don't know what the current team's going to look like, but they've done very, very well and sponsors love them, et cetera, et cetera. So, this was a really big misstep or miscalculation, I think, by Infantino. I'm betting he still manages to weasel his way into a fourth term, but it could be. I mean, there's calls for him to resign. Some of his longtime allies have turned on him, and this is a big change. Right after the most watched, most lucrative, most popular World Cup in history. Like he's riding way up here, other than he can't get Donald Trump to get off the stage when the Spanish players are trying to celebrate winning. Other than that, been a pretty good month for him.
Here for people outside the family who deal with the family. It doesn't always go well.
Yeah. Right. You think you're getting a deal with dealing with Donald Trump.
Hey, I'm going to change the subject. Did you hear about this lawsuit against Netflix by this producer who he paid $45 million to produce an action war movie called Fortitude, starring Nicolas Cage. Ben Kingsley's in it. I think, what's his name? The dude from Sons of Anarchy, the guy who played Clay Barrow. What's his name again? Mutton chops in the goop.
I live in anarchy, but mostly as a father of anarchy. It's not so much a son. But that being said, I did hear about it from my favorite co-host of my favorite podcast, Next TMT Talks, because you wrote about it in our newsletter. Yeah, and it is interesting that he's complaining that somebody heisted a. Look, I just had to. So ahead of we're going to be at IBC, International Broadcasting Conference, in September. I've also got the Venice Film Festival, and I got one of these DJ Osmo 3 pocket cinema things. Cool, very cool. I needed a memory card. Couldn't find one. I went to Best Buy because supposedly they had them there. I was like, well, we don't stock the high bit rate, the ones that can handle high bit rate video in a big enough size to be capacity to really be useful to you. Go to Apple, go to Google. Now we don't have this stuff. So I go to Sammy's Camera, the temple of cameras in Southern California. And of course,
only the best.
They have it, but they only have 128 and 516. I get the big one, so I got it. But the point is, how much film do you need to have on your memory card? How much capacity do you need to hold an entire movie?
Well, I supposedly.
And why wouldn't you encrypt that and put it somewhere besides your desk drawer?
The plaintiffs said that Netflix wanted to screen the movie at their Hollywood facility or somewhere around there, and they asked for it unencrypted, stored it in what turned out to be an insecure place, a locked desk, and it got stolen. Time went by before they fessed up and said, hey, we lost it. And now we have a pristine copy circulating on Pirates and Thieves. Netflix countered with...
But hasn't been seen in a while.
It hasn't leaked yet. You have the copies of the movie, and you're trying to shake us down. You always hear about these content security issues, but it's a pretty big lawsuit, $105 billion.
Well, yeah, if you don't ask, you won't receive, but that's not the number it's likely to be. I mean, to me, the really interesting part of all this is that would be the way, in an era where cloud computing kind of a thing,
Right.
and distributing. Look, they can't do it with IMAX. IMAX requires literally reels of film so big they require a forklift to move the reels of film for like the Odyssey. But other than that, you got the cloud. You've got ways to move films around, and we do it every frickin' day in this country and far beyond.
That's a good
And the
point.
fact that you're going to put it on a memory card and stick it in your desk feels odd.
The media services side of me feels like that's archaic.
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah. But the fact that it hasn't leaked suggests that either A, nobody cares about the movie.
It's got Nick Cage in it. Come on.
It's like, well, and Nick Cage at least has won an Oscar, but he's got a decent cast and all that, but it's a $45 million war movie, probably not that big of production values given the cost of producing anything these days. With that cast, that cast couldn't have come cheap. So you kind of wonder, what are you going to see on screen? But the fact it's not been seen in the wild says a lot. It's whatever happened to it. These things are tiny. This little $160, 512 gigabyte card that I have stuck into my little tiny, wonderful, delightful, cool DJI Osmo 3. It's this long and that wide. It's a little shocking how tiny it is.
I can
It's
assure
so
you my
small
card's
that
much bigger.
it has a bigger shell that you put it into to be able to put it into your computer, as opposed to these tiny handheld devices.
I'm going to keep hammering away at these penis jokes until you acknowledge them.
Good luck with that.
I'll stop.
You don't know my family background, which is of a father, an inveterate punster who, even at 84, cannot resist dumbass jokes
Dick joke
coming at you pretty much like dick jokes at an Andrew Dice Clay concert.
Hickory
So I'm
dickory
just
dock.
saying, I have learned to ignore bad jokes very well or mock them with a cold and practiced eye. So venture there at your own
As
danger.
I've said, I'm a volume shooter, and sometimes the percentage is up, and sometimes
We'll talk to Vivian about that.
Yeah, she's
Boom.
I'm trending down percentage-wise, according to her. But
Yeah,
I just think her funny bone's getting older. I blame it on her aging, not me.
Yeah, that's going to work out well for you, buddy. I hope to see you sometime this week still alive, though your chances like a Kalshi bet are just shrinking. So anyway.
All right, let's sing us out of this joint, and let's deliver this newsletter.
Let's deliver it. So this is David Bloom
Desperate
at Next TMT Talks, co-founder Daniel Frankel here in my conversation today. This is our twice a week podcast. We also do twice a week newsletter, all of which are free. You can find all of it through Next TMT, as in media, technology, media, and telecom, nexttmt.com for free. Sign up. We love more subscribers. We love more comments. Like, shares, subscribes, all those things are fantastic. We will be in Amsterdam in mid-September. Still looking for some sponsors to help finance our bad habit, which is to show daily coverage of an insane, sprawling convention about the future of broadcasting and much else. There in the city of canals, that's not Venice. I'll also be in Venice, but that's a separate thing.
Maybe they don't like newsletters that bind us all together, create community, make us more informed, more powerful.
As has been written, and as is mentioned in our newsletter that I referred to glancingly in the recession for all our influencers out there, what we're seeing is a fracturing of audiences more and more and more, even in the influencer space. It's very difficult to cobble together a large audience as an influencer, more so than ever. There are still plenty of Darmans and Mr. Beasts and Ms. Rachels and Mark Robers, but it's hard for lots of folks in the middle class these days to get scale. And that's how you make it a sustainable business. And you've got to keep evolving, and that's a challenge. So, and we're looking to get there. So keep listening, keep reading. With all that, thank you so much.
Come with us if you want to live.
Attention. Come with us if you want to live. Yes. Or at least live well. I think that's the important thing. Come with us if you want to live well. So, because the other one sounds a little threatening.
Right.
This is David Bloom with Daniel Frankel. Over and